The City of Annapolis Standing Committee for the Public Safety Committee will come to order, call to order here. Good evening to everyone. Good afternoon. It is 4:20, and we will next have the roll call. Alderman Payon?
Here.
Alderman Gay?
Not here.
And yours truly, Rhonda Pendleton Charles, here. Approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
Yes, Madam Chair, I would move that we approve the agenda.
Okay, I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Number 4, business before the committee. A, approval of the minutes.
I have reviewed the minutes, Madam Chair, and they appear to be in order from the last meeting. I would move their approval.
So moved. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. PSC 01.06-20. B, public safety spotlight and did you know, which are two separate entities, written reports and comments, year-to-date overdose summary. So I do believe that we'll start with the we'll start with the fire department on spotlight and did you know? And Mr. Lyles and Director Gordon is here today. Mr. Lyles, good to have you here at our public safety meeting as our city attorney. All right. We have two segments, one called Spotlight, one Did You Know? Spotlight is usually reserved for our public safety team to highlight any good deeds or good things that our staff have been doing over the past month. Did You Know is something that they bring to the attention of our council as well as our viewing audience. Things that we might not know about that's going on with our public safety team. So, and then we have written reports and comments year to date on our overdose summary. So this time we have our fire department before us. Please introduce yourselves and we may get started.
Good afternoon. Doug Romali, Fire Chief. To my right is Deputy Chief Carol Spriggs, and to my left is Captain John Muhich from the Forest Drive Fire Station. Our spotlight and Did You Know all revolves around one of Captain Muhich's pride projects that he took over multiple years ago, and we were going to let him just tell you a little bit about the Santa Run, how many families that the department and his organization in combination, and the police department, have worked together to address. So he's just got a short presentation for you. I think it's a short video, and just tell you a little bit about what they've done. And that would be our spotlight.
All right. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. Once again, my name is John Muhich, captain of the Forest Drive Fire Station. I'm going to start off with a short video.
Okay.
Hello, my name is John Muhich. I'm a captain in the Annapolis Fire Department here in Annapolis, Maryland. I'm also the Chief Grinch and founder of the Annapolis Santa Run.
I'll just continue on with my my notes that I've prepared, and I'll email you that video later. So, good afternoon. Once again, my name is John Muhich. I'm the captain of the Forest Drive Fire Station. It is my distinct honor and pleasure to present to the committee today about the Annapolis Santa Run. The Annapolis Santa Run is a charity tour drive that is sponsored by Annapolis Firefighters Local 1926 with a deeply rooted partnership with the City of Annapolis Fire Department. Every year for the last 16 consecutive years, on the second Sunday in December, Annapolis firefighters, along with 6 area volunteer fire companies, 3 police agencies, and a host of other community volunteers join in a mission of love to provide Christmas toys for those in need in our communities. We have 8 different routes that cover the City of Annapolis, the Annapolis Neck Peninsula, and the Greater Broadneck Peninsula. Each route is assigned one piece of modern fire apparatus, antique fire apparatus, a police escort, chase vehicles, and of course Santa. At each stop, Santa meets and greets the children of the community. The children then bring Santa new unwrapped gifts that the elves bring back to the North Pole. During the course of the night, we stop at over 65 communities in and around the City of Annapolis and the surrounding area. Several of our stops are in communities whose residents are senior citizens. These communities have turned out to be some of our most popular stops. At these stops, grandparents have developed a seasonal holiday tradition to bring their grandchildren to see Santa. These families and community bonds are strengthened as grandparents who may not see their grandchildren regularly or alone during the holidays can experience the joys of the holiday season together. At the end of the night, the collection of new and unwrapped gifts are brought to the North Pole, which is storage space generally donated by a community partner to be sorted by gender and age groups. On the third Sunday in December, our elves, many of whom are local students and community volunteers, joining with your Annapolis firefighters to help sort and pick out gifts for our neighbors in need. Each family gifts are placed in a black plastic garbage bag with a tag attached. That tag is used by our elves to identify the family's last name and drop-off point. The Monday before Christmas, your Annapolis firefighters, many of whom are coming off their 24-hour shift, stop by the North Pole and again join together with other community volunteers to distribute the gifts to the drop-off points in Annapolis and the surrounding areas of Anne Arundel County. The parents or children's guardian then arrange to pick up the packages from the distribution points to place under the tree Christmas morning. It is our goal that every child in the city of Annapolis and surrounding area wakes up to a brighter Christmas morning. In 2019, we were privileged and blessed to help over 650 families with more than 1,000 children to feel the love and generosity of our community and experience the true spirit of Christmas. The Annapolis Santa Run is only successful because of the dedication, logistical support provided by the many supporters and partners. In 2019, the Annapolis Santa Run tradition was made possible through 240 volunteers, over 1,200 man-hours in 65 communities, 750 contractor garbage bags, 200 AA batteries, 100 AAA batteries, 50 9-volt batteries, 20 C-cell batteries, and over 5,000 candy canes. That, along with 6 antique fire engines, 1 antique ladder truck, 8 very dedicated Santas, 3,000 feet of storage space donated by a local business, chase vehicles provided by citizens and businesses, 3 police agencies, including the City of Annapolis Police Department, 6 volunteer fire companies, the support of Chief Douglas Romali and the Annapolis Fire Department, the City Council, and specifically you, the Public Safety Committee. Frequently, we are asked numerous questions about the Santa Run and how we conquer this mission. We are often asked, how do we count the number of children that we see on the night of the Annapolis Santa toy collection? We use the candy cane count. The candy cane count is how many candy canes we pass out on the night of the Santa Run. This year, we passed out approximately 4,000 candy canes. How do you know how many children and families you serve? We get that by the garbage bag count. Each garbage bag that is sent out represents a family. When do you start planning for next year's Annapolis Santa Run? December 26th. In closing, please let me share with you just one of the many memories that we helped have create and experience during the Santa Run. While making the rounds with Santa, I noticed at one stop that in the shadows stood an elderly couple with a grown man. As I watched the man appear nervous and something just didn't seem right. As the young children gathered around Santa, I kept watching and noticing that this man seemed very anxious. As Santa started towards the fire engine and the lead fire engine started to move, I watched as the elderly couple approached with this man. Then I realized what was happening. The man appeared to have some sort of disability, and the elderly couple appeared to be his parents. The look on his face, wide open, just wanting to see Santa, was the look of a young child seeing Santa for the first time. His parents beamed with pride as a young couple would with their first child. Santa immediately responded and made sure this man would see the magic of the Christmas season. It was at this time I hopped off the engine, realizing that his parents wanted to get a picture and could not get their phone to work. Before I could get to the parents, the neighbor, who they had never met before, offered to take his picture with Santa and send it off to them. Let me borrow this quote. Santa does not come down the chimney. He comes from the spirit in your heart. Thank you for your time today and your continued support of the Annapolis Santa Run. If you have any questions or would like to become involved with our group, please feel free to contact me. Thank you.
And can you give your contact information, please, Captain?
I can be contacted through the Annapolis Fire Department, through our headquarters at 410-263-7975.
Okay, thank you very much. And you say this started what year again?
17 years ago, so
Okay.
2002.
It's really developed over the years. It went from a single community, which actually was on the Annapolis Neck Peninsula, which actually wasn't in the city, but we handled it, to what it is today. And it encompasses areas in the county, but it's all part of the Annapolis Santa Run. And he uses volunteers, multiple volunteers, gets the schools involved. Not only are we using the counselors to help identify the families, but he brings the students from the high school in for their community service hours. And I've seen it over the last 3 years. Actually, just having them come in and participate has helped streamline the process. Mm-hmm. So we're very proud. I'm proud because I've been involved in it for quite a while, but John is the one that spearheads it. He took it over, and it continues to grow every year. And you can tell some of the, well, it's not so gray today, but his gray hairs show it too.
Thank you so much, Captain. It's a miracle, as most children think. I mean, all of our fond memories, or lack thereof for some, are based around Christmas and the holidays. And if you can make it much brighter for those who it may be dim for, that's huge. And we congratulate you as well as your program that you've been carrying on so wonderfully well, and that it has grown. We're so proud to be a part of your program. Thank you so very much, and congratulations. Alderman Payon, do you have any questions or comments?
None.
Okay. Thank you so much.
So I left you just a little bit of statistics or highlights from 2019 from the Annapolis Fire Department up on your, in front of you. But basically, our calls from service continue to.
Okay.
You can't hear it?
Yeah, you gotta talk into the mic. You're kind of on the side like I am right now.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay. So it's highlights from 2019. Calls from service continue to improve or go up. We've ran over 12,000 calls last year, transported 5,600 people, close to 5,700 people to the hospital. EMS billing revenues for the year. Now, this is the calendar year, not the fiscal year. Averaged about 1.7 million that was brought in because of EMS billing. The national average cardiac arrest save rate's about 6.5. We're at 4.3, but there are a lot of variables that go into that. It has to be a witness cardiac arrest, so we're trying to make sure those numbers are correct. We believe that our save rate is higher than that. There's some other highlights on there, but you'll see that last year there was $2.7 million worth of fire loss in the city of Annapolis. On the positive side, we had no fire deaths, and we haven't had a fire death since 2010. I really don't like statistics, and I don't like to advertise that because farther away you are, the closer you are to the next one. We'd like to continue on the trend of no fire deaths in the city of Annapolis. 117 safe station referrals, which is just an indication of the opioid problem that continues to go on. There's some statistics on there about inspections and public safety programs that we put on. We believe we reached over 14,000 people last year with some of our public safety programs, so that was pretty good. And we know that every month you ask about overdose statistics. We know that when you get them from the police department and Department of Emergency Management, it throws you off when you see ours because our responses include all overdoses, and it also includes the calls we run outside. So we believe the statistics that you're looking for there, we would refer that to the police department and OEM to keep that tracking. But last year in the city of Annapolis, we ran 269 overdoses. The second sheet is just basically where the fire loss and all came from and some of the other responses there. And as you're aware, we continue to work with the hospitals because of the hospital wait times. So we are doing a better job tracking it. We are requiring our employees to actually document when the person is transferred from their cot to the hospital staff. But over the last 3 months, we're still averaging just under an hour at the hospital, and the patients are on our cots for about 32 minutes. So that's a pretty good average. We still have those anomalies where we have medic units tied up at the hospital for 2 to 3 hours because they can't get the patient off their stretcher. But it continues to improve. We just got approved for a national program that's out there to transport to alternative care facilities. We're working through that now with the Office of Law. And what that will let us do is some of the lesser priority calls may actually be going to a third party, such as Right Time Medical Care, and we'll be able to transport there and still stay within our medical protocols. So that's an ET3 program that's out there, and Annapolis was one of the jurisdictions that was picked to move this forward and to see if this would actually help with the healthcare issues that are there. We also are working with Anne Arundel County and the hospital on an integrated paramedicine type of program. It's more of a mobile unit that goes out for the people that are using 911 quite a bit. Sometimes they're calling for medic units to go to the hospital because they're out of their medications. This will send units out there to the high priority callers that use the system all the time and try to help them. And that integrates social services and Department of Health also with a paramedic that goes around to these facilities. So we continue to move forward. We're trying to address the concerns that are there with the healthcare program, and it's all partnerships with the county and the healthcare system.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Couple questions. I know we had a meeting over at Anne Arundel Medical about a year or so ago concerning the wait times, as well as a program that was brought up concerning the high flyers and the Anne Arundel County Department of Aging and Disabilities. Any update on that?
That's what that paramedicine program will be doing.
Okay.
That's the frequent flyers, the high fly call volume. So that's out there. The county had started it. We are in partnership. Actually, it's in the Office of Law now too, because Anne Arundel Medical Center may actually be able to provide some of the overtime costs for our medic to go out there and do this for the daily staffing. And basically what it boils down to is the county will be providing the medic 3 to 4 days a week. We'll be providing the medic 1 day, and it'll be a countywide program. So that's there. And also the hospital wait times coming down. That's all part of the effort that is going on with the continuing partnership with Anne Arundel Medical Center and Baltimore Washington Medical Center.
Have we had any meetings with them lately?
Yes, we have staff that's there all the time. I'll let Chief Spriggs let you know who was on that.
Sure, I was going to look at my phone only because I know there are a couple scheduled meetings this week with Anne Arundel Medical Center, specifically with regard to the ET3 program and the wait time. So Battalion Chief Christian and Captain Edwards are constantly in communication with staff at the hospital, and they're in meetings weekly, sometimes bi-weekly.
Okay.
So Chief Spriggs and I continue to look at the priorities of the department, the needs of the department. One of the things we did do is dedicate a battalion chief, move some of their responsibilities around, and now Chief Christian is in charge of EMS and safety. He has a degree in emergency healthcare services. We think he's a good person for that position for us, and we're focusing him more towards those type of avenues. And he is working with the hospital every day and that ET3 program through state and federal government also. So we're keeping him pretty busy with that.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much. Alderman Payon, do you have any questions?
Yes. The 117 safe station incidents, do you know, presumably that they involve people who showed up and said something to the effect of, I need some help. Do we know what happened to those folks? Do you know how many actually ended up in treatment of some kind? What exactly do we do? Different question, but maybe you can answer it at the same time. What do we do when they show up? And I know we call other people in who may know more than the firefighters at the station in terms of what to do, but what happened? Let's take it from there and then tell me how many we think actually followed up with treatment.
Sure. So what occurs is, this person will come to one of our fire stations or even one of the county fire stations and ask for help. And so an engine company or a ladder truck company, if they're in quarters, or a paramedic unit, whoever's in the station, that unit will actually go out of service so that we will keep people at the station and not allow them to go on an emergency response. There's some paperwork that they'll fill out. I'm sorry.
3 people? 4 people?
A minimum of 2. If it's a paramedic unit, it could be 2 people, but if it's an engine or a truck, then there would be 3 people. There's a form that they would fill out just with the person's name and address, some contact information, emergency contact information, and then our personnel notify crisis management. Crisis management will send a response team, and they're normally pretty good. Within an hour, their personnel will report to the station, and then they will actually take over the interview and find out where they could place this person for help. We specifically don't get the results of where they're placed or how they made out in their treatment. But as long as they're a county resident, crisis management will make sure that they get somewhere to get the appropriate treatment.
So we're basically the intake to start the program.
Right.
Now, Dave Mandel might be able to tell us more because they work with Mobile Crisis, and Mobile Crisis may be providing them more information about any people that have lapsed or how many people have gone through the program. But what I can tell you is the police department is also a safe station. We typically don't see people going to the police department a whole lot because they worry. The people that are showing up here are the ones that are saying, hey, I need help. And if they have drugs on them, they will not be charged. We'll have a police officer come take the drugs and they will have them destroyed. But at that point, when they come to this as a safe station project, it's these people are looking for help, and that moves on from there. But mobile crisis handles where the intake.
Do we ever get people that just, they show up and then when they realize what they've done, walk away?
We do. We've had some people just walk away from it. We've had some people get frustrated because even mobile crisis needs to make sure that they specifically are looking for help. They may not get placed in a place overnight. It's not a guarantee. They have to find a facility. Emergency management's done a good job there. They have that bed finder program. It's worked well countywide, and it is a good program. It is helping.
I guess what I had in mind is that knowing some of the fellows on various paramedic teams, they have commented from time to time that while this doesn't happen often, occasionally they'll show up, somebody's unresponsive, they give them the Narcan, they come to and they kind of look around going, I knew you guys would be here, and go about their merry way after that. And I mean, I guess, does that type of thing ever happen here?
It does happen here. We actually had a case at the Taylor Avenue station where mobile crisis was on scene. We had a gentleman who we did not realize he had drugs on him that went into the restroom and actually went into respiratory arrest. It was actually a shock to the mobile crisis person. Now, we revived that person. They were placed into a facility, but it occurs on time to time. We also have people that come and just leave. There are some people on the streets that are basically dead when we get to them. And this isn't a safe station, but they're there. And the police department, too, they're rolling up. They're in respiratory arrest or sometimes cardiac arrest. The Narcan and CPR helps them, brings them back, and they actually refuse treatment. And there's not a whole lot we can do with that.
Yeah.
But it's a healthcare problem throughout the United States.
Very sad. I guess it's the old, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make the horse drink.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Payon. One other question I have, and we're talking about Christmas and wish lists, if you had a wish list, and I know you do, within reason, as far as your budget or your enhancements, give us some indication of what that might be.
You like that now?
Certainly.
So we are just early on in the budget process. We've submitted our budget to the city manager for the mayor's budget. We have some top priorities on there. We know the budget's going to be tight. We still have concerns about our staffing levels at the Eastport Fire Station. When we are at minimum staffing, we cannot get the engine company or the truck company both out of the building. We've had multiple fires here lately where we've waited for a ladder truck from far out. One of the fires was on Bowie Avenue? Gross Avenue. Chief Spriggs and I were there. Now, there was another call going on at the time. Chief Spriggs and I were there, but our first due ladder truck was coming from Wall Chapel and Odington while our truck was not staffed. We had a fire within the last month at the Harbor House complex, which is a multi-story apartment building where people had to be rescued from balconies. We were at minimum staffing on that day, and if the fire is in the first due area in Eastport, they're going to take the fire engine because that's got water on it. These people had to be rescued from balconies. Typically, we would like to see us back to where we were years ago, where the truck is actually staffed. Now, we use that truck company also for that peak time medic unit when we have high volume and all our medic units are out of service. But when we're at minimum staffing, we can't do either one of those. So that's high on our priority list. Other thing that's high on our priority list is the fire protection engineer that we believe the city needs to have on staff, which will help with some of these code concerns that have been brought up, actually some of the appeals that we've dealt with over the last year. We believe having that fire protection engineer on staff would help streamline the code process and would help with the plans review process. And if you look back to the first major Main Street fire in the early, I guess 87, it wasn't early 80s, late 80s, when the first commission that was established from there, recommended we hire a fire protection engineer. We have a part-time person on staff who does a lot for us that he does not charge for, but we're to the point where we need a fire protection engineer on staff. And we continue to have large complexes coming up, that need to be reviewed. And if you go to outside review company, you don't always know what you're getting. The prices are extremely high, and the contractors can't come to the city and say, hey, what can I do what are some alternatives? And to have this person on staff would be very good for the city, we believe.
Chief, do you all still have a physician on staff as well as someone that you all?
So we have to operate under a physician's license for our medical certifications. We have a medical director who is paid not a lot of money, who has worked for us for years and continues to do it. I can tell you that if that person ever leaves or cannot be involved with the city anymore, that our rate's going to go up, because I believe the county has one on staff, which well over 6-digit figures, and we have a part-time person that's doing it for way less than that. And sooner or later, we're going to have to make some adjustments. But right now, Dr. Heller is working for us. He continues to. He has not had any complaints, and as far as we know, he's going to stay on staff with us.
And Class 1, I guess, helps with everything, all the amenities that you have within your fire department?
So for the fire protection aspects of it, it does. And then we're running this for medical units, ALS units in the city. So we believe we're well covered, and we have good partnerships with the county and the Naval Academy to handle calls as they come up.
Okay. The other thing is, too, we had a brief conversation, and I indicated Dr. Knowledge from the Health Department. We've been talking about this mobile wellness vehicle. Just want to know, and like I indicated, you had spoken to the mayor about that, and we're looking for something not nearly on the same level as what the county has, but Dr. Knowledge is willing to work with us to find something that might be out of service that we can utilize. Can you give us a little more?
So Chief Spriggs and we had a conversation about it. We'll look some more. We do have a medic unit that's being replaced, which will go out of service next week. That currently is projected to go to the police department to be used for their resources over there. There may be a second option out there if it's determined that a medic unit is feasible, and we will check with the Eastport Volunteers to see where that unit stands. I know that they were planning on selling that unit. They currently have bought a medic unit and a fire engine in the city of Annapolis. They make payments on it every year, so they're always looking to have fund drives and bring in funds to help pay those payments that they are required to make. And I believe by selling the medic unit, they were just hoping to get a little more cash that they have for those payments. But we'll enter those conversations again, let them know what you're looking for.
Good. That would be really helpful. Like, we don't have a school system, we don't have a health department, but we do need something. I know at one point there was discussion about what the mobile wellness unit would entail, and we were looking at things beyond wellness. We were looking at maybe education or workforce, because people who come to those vehicles don't want their neighbors to know exactly what they're coming to that vehicle for. So not to say that masks some of what they're coming for, but that does help with folks trying to get some kind of information or help. Like I said, we're not looking at anything on the level of the county, but something. But I would appreciate it if you could come back with some follow-up at our April public safety meeting. That would be great.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you all so very much. Alderman Payon, anything else? No. Mr. Lyles, did you have anything you wanted to add or ask?
I don't, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all so very much. I'm gonna call on OEM because I think the police have someone, a guest coming possibly. Okay, David, Mr. Mandel? Okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
David Mandel, Deputy Director, on behalf of the Office of Emergency Management.
Okay, thank you so much for being here.
It is a pleasure. Okay, so I've got a few things, and if you had a question you want to start off, if you wanted me to address some of the points that were made by the fire department.
Certainly.
Okay, first of all, with regard to patient tracking, Two thoughts on that. Mobile Crisis does do patient tracking, and we can follow up with them if you'd like specifics. And there's actually going to be a new police department program that is funded that will send an officer and a clinician to addresses where folks have experienced an overdose to do some follow-up. And actually that program is going to be two parts: the officer clinician team that goes out after the overdose, but also additional youth prevention and education programs. So we try to intervene and educate at every step of the process if possible. The other thing I wanted to mention is the follow up on is the treatment program and the mobile crisis response. Fire department's the intake process, as Chief O'Malley mentioned, and then it's really up to mobile crisis to determine the best placement for the individual, assuming they do want treatment. And obviously the bed finder program, as mentioned, does play into that as well. Some folks accept it, some folks do not, and some folks are looking for a different kind of treatment, basically. So Mobile Crisis does a fantastic job doing that interview to understand what it is they have and what it is that would be best for the individual during that process.
Okay,
Okay, so just wanted to follow up on those points as well.
thank you.
Okay. So if it pleases, I would like to get into the topic of the day that everyone has been speaking about and thinking about, which is coronavirus.
Yes.
So here's the latest. I'd like to give you an overview on multiple levels here because this is rapidly developing, as you know.
Before you go any farther, I think I'm okay because I'm not drinking Corona anymore. So.
You know, I was since you mentioned that, Alderman Payon, I have heard that the Corona beer has suffered in sales of late because of the name.
I heard that too. They're down about 20 or 30%.
Right, which is
Amazing.
Obviously the beer has nothing to do with the virus for everyone's sake.
And I think that's why they changed the name of the virus.
Maybe, I don't know, but that was an interesting side note that I heard about as well. So, in terms of globally, there's now over 89,000 cases. What's that?
How many?
It's 89,000. This is as of about noon today. 89,527 cases, 3,056 deaths worldwide. Most of these cases, over 80,000 of the cases are in China. 67 countries have cases. The worst hit countries aside from China are Iran, Italy, and South Korea, believe it or not. And Japan has also received a number of cases as well. In terms of the United States, aside from repatriated cases, there are 43 confirmed cases, 17 hospitalized, and 2 deaths. However, as I was coming over here this afternoon, there was a report on CNN that about 5 people died in a nursing home in Washington State.
Oh, wow.
So that's not on these statistics. That's just from CNN. That's not an official source. I wouldn't normally quote that, but you may be hearing throughout the day that the number is going up. And I understand there's about, I think, 10 states off the top of my head that have at least one case. There was a New York City case today that was reported. So in terms of the background, though, with regard to Annapolis, that said, there have been, as I understand, 3 folks that were tested in Maryland for the virus, none confirmed to have it. 2 were negative, and the 1 was outstanding, pending, as last I heard. So there's no imminent threat. This has not come to Maryland, not come to the county. And the CDC and the World Health Organization, they are saying that for folks that didn't travel to, areas like China or Italy or what have you with active cases, and you're not in contact with people who have done so, the risk is low. The risk is low at this time. But it's important, obviously, to prepare. The kinds of information that public health officials are sharing are the same kinds of health information that you would share for the flu. This is something that is contagious via coughing and sneezing and close personal contact, touching, shaking hands, touching an object or something that has the virus on it. So the same kinds of precautions that you take to avoid the flu are the same kinds of precautions you can take to avoid the coronavirus. So in terms of local actions, first of all, you may have seen the governor's press conference I think it was last Friday, where he went to MEMA and requested, I think, about $10 million in the state for additional response and education initiatives. So the state's doing quite a lot to try to head this off and respond and prepare as much as possible. In terms of locally, emergency management is setting up a conference call with the health officer on Thursday for department heads at the city manager staff meeting that's being arranged. OEM met with the economic development folks on Friday to brief them on the virus and to explain how this would potentially, what it could potentially mean for local businesses and provide materials and talking points. We met with the Housing Authority already to help them start getting prepared. We are doing a survey of citywide personal protective equipment and inventory. We've been speaking with police and fire. What kind of masks, what kind of gowns, what kind of protective equipment do you have should this become an issue in our city? We're obviously getting daily updates from the Department of Health and Homeland Security. We've set up a public information officer meeting that is, I believe it's on Thursday this week, in the EOC for all the public information officers for the city of Annapolis and the health officer as well.
Do we have any facts out, FAQs out from the county health department or?
Sure. We've been getting updates, like I said, just about every day. They'll send an email with the latest statistics and the latest guidance. The guidance hasn't really changed, which is, like I said, to just really take the same precautions you'd always take. And mostly they're updating us on the numbers and the developments, which are increasing but have not come to Maryland or even any of the surrounding states next to Maryland at this point. So like I said, the threat right now is low, but now is the time to prepare, to educate, to get ready should a case come to Maryland or to Annapolis. So that's kind of an overview. Basically, we're in full preparation mode, working on resources, coordination, education, information.
Have we had any contact with Anne Arundel County Public Schools?
Yes, as a matter of fact, with Bob Mosier and what they're doing. Absolutely. And that's something down the road that they are talking about is what kinds of precautions would have to be taken if we start seeing cases. And there is a scenario down the line where you have to think about large gatherings and I've heard them talk about teleschooling, so to speak, where you have internet connections and you can teach remotely, basically, is what they're thinking and talking about right now. And they've made parents aware of that. I can tell you as an Anne Arundel County parent. And they're sort of thinking about the triggers and the situations that would occur depending on how this develops. So we've been impressed with the level of coordination and the information coming forward, and I think it's only going to build as this threat sort of continues to develop.
Okay.
Any questions
Pam,
on that?
do you have any questions?
No questions.
Thank you.
Okay, I would like to highlight two things on a positive note. Let's end this on a positive note. Spotlight, you mentioned Alderwoman, should be for good deeds. Well, so two of us in the Office of Emergency Management have been working on our advanced certifications. There's something called the Certified Emergency Manager designation. It is the highest designation that emergency managers can receive, and it is awarded by the International Association of Emergency Managers. And there is an exam, there is an essay, there is quite a bit of paperwork to show how many dozens, if not hundreds, of training hours you've put in, professional contributions to the field. It's extremely extensive, and I think only about 3,000 people have it nationally. Well, I'm here to say that I was awarded the CEM designation since our last public safety meeting.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And Mary Kate Seborowski sent her application in. She passed the exam, and she submitted the rest of the application with everything else this weekend. So we look forward to hearing some good news from her application. But
wonderful.
We're at a point where your Office of Emergency Management has, professional emergency managers with the highest certification in the field that are working on behalf of our city. So
great.
We thought that would be a nice spotlight to let you know about.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your spotlight.
Thank you.
And congratulations preliminarily to MK.
Thank you. It's we're thrilled. We're thrilled to be in this position, and we continue to look forward. Okay. Last thing is the did you know that there was an open house in the Emergency Operations Center? I believe it was on February 8th with a wide variety of diverse community leaders in the Emergency Operations Center. The NAACP, the Caucus of African American Leaders, a number of community activists filled the EOC for about 2 hours on Saturday the 8th. And they went through, of course, what the Emergency Operations Center is and how it operates, but they also did a little role-playing exercise where they got to act as the mayor and council members and senior staffers and department heads to understand what it's like to make decisions during serious incidents and the kinds of considerations and the developments and sometimes the speed and the breadth of some of these decisions as things as situations develop. And in fact, I'm told that the session went longer than anticipated because people got so into the decisions and everything they had to understand to do and make sure that they made the right calls, that everybody found it a worthwhile use of their time.
Wonderful. The age range of the people who attended?
It was obviously adults, but I understand it ranged from 20s to senior citizens.
Okay, great.
All the activists that were able to come made it a great event, and it was a fantastic.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Alderman Payon, do you have any questions?
No questions, no comments. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
so much, Mr. Mandel. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Okay, the Annapolis City Police Department is up next. Chief Jackson, Deputy Chief Herman, Detective Bradford. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Alderman Payon. Yes, I'll start off. By the way, we were waiting on the crime analyst in addition to her name is Christina O'Neill, and she's fully on board. First name Christina, last name O'Neill. She's gone for today. Okay. She works with us from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. So,
Chief, can you turn your microphone on, please?
I'm sorry. Yes, okay. Yeah, I'll make sure that at the next meeting in April, that we bring her. So
Ms. Christina O'Neill?
Christina O'Neill, yes, ma'am.
New crime analyst.
She's our new crime analyst. She's a native of Annapolis, and I believe she's married to a naval officer, and she's an Annapolitan, so we're happy to have her on board, and we've been keeping her very busy.
When did she start?
She started maybe a month ago. Yeah, 6 weeks, a month ago, 6 weeks. Okay. And then at future meetings, I'll be able to get back to presenting year-to-date crime, and comparisons to the previous years to kind of give a barometer of how we're doing.
Certainly.
Both ways.
Okay.
And so she'll be doing that amongst many things.
Great.
Working with OEM and all of our public safety partners.
Okay. Like to hear for the next meeting exactly what she's going to be doing and how she's going to be kind of doing it.
Yes, ma'am, and I'll get her to give a little bit. I'll make sure she's here
That's
to
fine.
talk about her background and what she brings to
Absolutely.
the table and how she's doing so far.
Great.
Yeah, she's attended my staff meetings, and it looks like she's getting off to a great start.
Great. Okay.
If it's okay with you, I'll start off with Did You Know?
Okay.
And myself and Major Herman, and I think Miguel Dennis will probably be going to, is it Fort Lauderdale, Florida? Orlando, Florida, that's right, Orlando, Florida. Last month, right after the holiday, the Commission on Accreditation of Law Enforcement Agencies, commonly referred to as CALEA, did an on-site, and we have gotten preliminary indication that our certification and our accreditation will be renewed, so I'm happy to report.
Great.
And we'll be there to accept the certification to bring back to Annapolis. So we were very proud of that.
Congratulations preliminarily. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. And the second, Did You Know, was the closed circuit TV. We're still currently updating all cameras in the Eastport area to help us aid in our law enforcement efforts. So we're currently updating them all. I don't have a projected time. No. Yeah, so, once we get the budget issues out the way, I don't want to lock into a projected date, but we are actively working to update them all.
Okay, all right.
And on February the 13th, I'll talk about a little bit about the crime, because given the concern, and rightfully so, with the violence in the city, I'll just talk about some of the things we've done to address it. On February the 13th, at 801 Chase Street, we made a carjacking arrest. It was the arrest involving the sledgehammer that was used as the weapon to threaten the victims. It was originally thought that the suspect was MS-13, but that's since been, the investigation revealed that that wasn't the case. So we do have a 26-year-old male in custody, waiting trial. And then on February the 16th, we are still actively investigating the shots fired where the vehicle was struck on Forest Drive outside Robinwood community. Detectives we have leads, but the detectives are still working very hard on establishing those leads by use of witnesses. We've had some difficulty with witnesses, but we're still actively working on that. And then on February the 20th, a search warrant was written and signed by a judge in reference to first-degree assault on Clay Street, in 100 block of Clay Street, And 3 long guns were seized: a .22 caliber rifle, a 5.56 rifle, and a shotgun. The subject was arrested and is in custody for the misuse of those weapons as well, and charged with assault. Also, the very next day, on February the 21st, we conducted an initiative, Operation Harbor House, in response to the violence that's occurred over the last few months. We call it Operation Harbor House, and we've engaged in traffic stops and doing everything constitutionally, of course, I need to add, to make sure that we properly engage and appropriately engage the community to try and identify those individuals, that pose a threat. And out of that, we were able to seize a handgun, a stolen handgun, and 2 subjects were arrested. And I believe that we prevented, my detectives and his men and women prevented a shooting as a result of that February 21st arrest at Harbor House. And then at President and Madison Street, I don't know if the public knows this, but in reference to that shooting that we solved and charged the individual with everything from handgun violations to attempted first-degree murder. We had an officer patrolled there, and he was, once the shooting occurred, he was at the shooting scene. It took him about 7 seconds to get there. And as a result of his diligence and bravery, a brief chase occurred and pursuit occurred, I should say, and the suspect was very quickly identified and apprehended. So we're very pleased with that. And we're still developing the cold case squad. One of the things we're doing is we're trying to add a reentry component, modeled in small part what they're doing, the unit that we talked about in Oakland, that violence reduction unit that's part of the city of Oakland. We're taking pieces out of that and infusing it in the Annapolis PD. I don't want to wait. Some of those things that need to be done, I would like to implement them as soon as possible, because that doesn't require a lot of budgetary issues, not in its entirety, but issues like reentry. We have an officer that's coming on board from Baltimore City after 28 years, and he's very well versed in the LEAD program, reentry, and things of that nature. So we should have him on board as soon as he finishes with his certification and his training. We want to take those 28 years and get him out there to help out Stan Bradford and his cold case squad.
Is there anything else you're going to be doing, Chief, besides working on the cold cases?
Yes, he's going to work with reentry, and we have a whole lot of things planned. He wants to bring about a healing component whereby he meets with the families and go over the entire case and talk about, what we've learned. Let's literally sit down with the family so that the entire investigative process doesn't remain a mystery. And we're even hoping that even if we can't solve the case due to lack of witness information or evidence, we at least want the families to know that we care and that we haven't forgot their loved one. And of course, we'll never give up on investigating the case, but he wants to sit down and talk to some of the families about that. So if you want to speak on that briefly.
About how many cases are we talking about, too?
It's about 20 that we're looking at. Or back 20 years. I'll let you talk about that.
So back about 20 years, but the cases that I've been given so far, it's about 10 cases that I've been looking at. And just to explain how this works, so my name is Stanley Branford. I'm a retired colonel from Baltimore City. I retired as the chief of detectives. I commanded the homicide unit twice in my career. One of the things I talked to the chief about was bringing this reentry. Now, cold cases and reentry go hand in hand, and this is how it works. Being in the homicide unit, we knew that part of our issue in solving cases was information. If we had a situation where we had a murder that was on inside of a house or a murder that was domestic related, we knew we can depend on people with information and forensics which was captured inside of their house. One of the hardest type of cases to solve was a case that happened on a street corner where one person shot another one and people just dissipated. The best chances for closing that case is information. And the reason why reentry is so important with that is that we get behind the walls. Now, so far, even before Rob Horn gets here, he has made contact and he has identified at least 5 inmates that's inside of jails right now who is willing to work with us in facilitating information. Unless we're able to build that trust back with the community, and those inmates will be important on doing that, not only will they be able to gain information for us, they will also be partners with us in facilitating peace in some of these communities. And how that works and what we offer them. Well, we bring partners with us. Johns Hopkins University, H&S Bakery, job training, job placement, housing, drug treatment. All those things are offered to these guys, and we'll even do it in the community on both ends. And what we ask them to do to receive this training, one, have a plan for them as they come out of prison so they don't reoffend. And we also ask them to help us gain information and gain the trust of those who are still in the community that may have information in reference to some of these shootings and homicide, so we can facilitate going into solving some of these issues and putting some of these cases down. So that's how the cold case and the reentry team will work together to try to solve some of these cases. Unless we have that communication piece, unless we build partnerships and gain that trust, not only on the people who's in the community, but those behind the walls, it's going to be huge for us in gaining intelligence to be able to close some of these cases.
Detective Branford, what's your title with the City Police Department at this point?
We're still redefining that. Right now, he's on a contract and he's serving as a consultant and he's helping us build the infrastructure. He's done so many things, Madam Chair, looking at the entire structure of how we investigate cases. He's been an advisor to me and my staff in terms of putting systems in place to address some of these. And the biggest problem that we do have here in the city of Annapolis is witnesses coming forth. And that's not a criticism, it's an observation. I think the fear of retaliation is real, and people are uncertain about where that places them in terms of their physical safety. There's just been this culture, not only in Annapolis, but it's a culture in America right now as it involves the criminal justice system, with witnesses being reluctant to come forward in fear of retaliation. So he's right now a consultant, a senior level consultant for the Annapolis PD.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And then one last thing, and I want to give my deputy chief the microphone to update on the vehicles and the technology and some of the things that he's overseeing. But I will be continuing my lecture series. Of course, I had one the other night, and we kicked it off with the Constitution. I didn't get through it the other night, but there's still some other things I plan on talking about, the Fifth Amendment and some other things I think will be very engaging and empowering to the community. So those are forthcoming. In fact, we'll be posting all the dates. Sergeant Miguez, my public information sergeant, is assisting me in that effort. So we're picking topics. We're even going to talk about public information and how that works and demystify some other things. Community policing, community engagement. And then we're going to eventually have a session where you can just ask the chief anything you want, and we just have a dialogue with the community. And the agenda behind that is to build trust and support for the police department and let the residents know that we're really in this with them, that we're not just an agency that provides public safety, that we're providing actual leadership, and that the Annapolis police chief is involved in the civic a part of the civic part of Annapolis. I just think that the police chief should be a civic leader in addition to heading up a public safety effort. So I want residents in all neighborhoods, churches, for as many people that will have us, I want to sit down and talk with them and just have some candid conversations about their police department.
Very good. I thought it went really excellently the other night. Very informative. I thought the attendees had some very good questions, so I thought it went really well. You have, I'm assuming, different venues lined up.
Yes, ma'am. We're going to take it all around. We're going into, I want to do Harbor House. I want to do Woodside Gardens, and everybody's been excited and receptive. So we're going to go all, throughout Annapolis, not just one venue. And we'll be working with communities. I want to talk about community development and some of those things to give them the benefit of not only my 20 plus years as a police professional, but also my academic background. I want to share that with the community, and also my tenure as Inspector General. So all those things that I've been able to do, I just want to be able to share and kind of be a blessing to the citizens of Annapolis to give as much knowledge from a layman's standpoint and deliver it in a way that you don't have to have a law degree or have graduated from a police academy to understand it. And based on the initial one, I just have the feeling they're going to get better. And it's my prayer that the citizens will be asking for them once we stop. Chief, when are you going to do the next one? So that's my agenda too. I want them to request them because they enjoyed them.
Certainly, absolutely.
Chief, let me know if you need any help setting something like that up in my ward.
Yes, sir, I will. In fact, yes, sir, because and that's part of my goal too, Alderman Payon, is that I want every ward to be represented in this process, and so I think every ward should be represented. And I think that the council should be able to say on record that, I was in everybody's ward.
Let me know. I've heard a lecture or two on constitutional law in my time.
Yes, sir. But I thought it went very well. I thought it was engaging. I thought the response was good. And if you get a chance, if you haven't seen it yet, the video, I just think that the interaction with the community.
Guarantee I can get people to make a spaghetti dinner first. I'll work on that.
Yes, sir.
It should be out, I think Julia said it'll be out in the next day or so. So people will be able to see it online.
Okay, good. And, like I said, I didn't get through all the Bill of Rights, but I wanted to highlight, we talked about the Fourth Amendment. you know, and the elephant in the room has become the stop and frisk controversy, and did my best to explain that constitutionally. And then we want to talk about other things. It's more than just stop and frisk when it comes to good law enforcement. As both of you know, as former prosecutors, there's so many other things that I think that the community should know and can be empowered with if it's given in a way. And I think this, me showing up in uniform as their police chief and having a conversation with them, I think it's just a nice touch, and I'm just hoping that it gets the desired results and get people excited about wanting to interact with us in a positive way.
True.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I just want to, because when Deputy Chief Herman gets done, I want to ask you about your wish list, the same thing I asked the fire department. And Mr. Mandel, I forgot to ask you the same thing, if you had a wish list within reason, and I'll ask you that after we get done with the police department. Thank you so much.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I won't take much time. I just wanted to give a quick update on the, there's two things I think, as you know, we're updating the entire fleet for the police department, the fleet of vehicles. And as you can imagine, it's a logistically huge, as well as a budgetarily huge undertaking. As part of the rollout, one of the things we're doing is we're redoing the entire security and technology platforms that all the cars, as you know, the cars are all have mobile computers in them. And the officers can write a report in the cars, they can do queries in the cars. There are some things that up till now they haven't been able to do in the cars, and we're addressing that with the rollout of the new cars. When the new cars roll out, and as I say, the dependency for the rollout of a lot of the cars is redoing the technology, which of course means redoing the security, which of course means we have to get regulatory compliant certifications from the FBI, because they manage the CJIS documents and the regulatory authorities that control the security. We're spearheading, we're the first agency in the state to actually do what we're doing by virtualizing a push of technology. It's noteworthy. It's quite noteworthy. In order to get what we're doing to the security platforms, we've been getting inquiries from all over the state, from other police departments that want to do what we're doing, including Baltimore. So I just wanted to brag about our people on that note, because
Bragging is welcomed here.
it's more of a did you know kind of thing. And the security platform that we're rolling out is going to be instrumental in a lot of other things. Like the chief mentioned, we're redoing all the cameras, but as you can imagine, the bandwidth and the security that we send the camera information, for example, all of that requires a whole series of logistical and budgetary items, and all of that will be managed. The security procedures and the security protocols will all be managed by this new security rollout. So it's a huge undertaking, and we're doing that. And in our spare time, we're redoing our entire. And now, mind you, this is all. None of this directly relates to crime, but of course, this makes it easy for an officer to do things on the street. We're also in the process of redoing our entire records management system and our entire dispatch system. Our entire dispatch, in fact, you should, the next time you're in the building, ask and we'll show you the new communications. It's quite impressive. And I'm pretty confident in saying I don't think any of the money came directly from the city. It was all through our 911. I better not say that. Certainly the majority, the bulk of it came from our 911 allotment. And we're redoing the entire communications section. So definitely next time you're in the building, stop by and take a look at that. Okay. And when we roll out the new CAD and the new RMS, it'll be quite impressive. The officers will be able to do rather advanced queries on the street. And when Christina starts doing analytical profiles, they'll be able to access that stuff from the street. So they'll be able to say things like, how is Paul Herman related to John Smith? And it'll be pretty high-end analysis. So in the case where the chief referenced, where the officer was there within seconds, literally seconds, they'll be able to, from the street, without coming into the station, without any of that, they'll be able to get camera feeds, screenshots, as I say, analytical analyses of individual people, that kind of thing. All constitutional, all entirely legal, but all delivered to the officer. What I speak to is not, we're currently doing that now, but what has to happen is somebody has to take it down, go back into the station, run it through this system, then run it through this system, then run it through this system. What we're doing is comprehensively bundling it all as one query. So it'll be, when it's all launched and it's all working, it'll be quite impressive.
When do you anticipating the launch approximately?
It's more of a, it isn't a date where everything happens. It's going to be more of a rollout.
Okay.
So the infrastructure rollout is probably going to be happening for the rest of our natural lives.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's the fiber that has to go to Robinwood and the fiber that has to go to Woodside Garden. I mean, there's all of that. And MIT's been helping us with that component of it. Of course, then there's the routing of it all and the sorting of it all. You get the idea. As for the cars, the rollout of the cars, we hope to be done within the next year. And part of the contract with the union binds us to rolling out the take-home cars for the officers. We're trying to minimize the rework. So it's a race against time to try to get as much of the technology rolled out now as we give out the cars, so we don't have to bring the car back in 6 months and redo everything. So it's a bit of a balancing act. I don't have a direct answer to your question.
Okay. Understood.
But we will be here to give status reports as they're relevant.
Great. Sounds really good.
It is.
One more quick thing, if you can speak to Deputy Chief, how the booking process has gone in Anne Arundel County since we stopped doing it.
Actually, that's a good point. I don't know if it's commonly known, but the county is taking over the booking process. What we currently do is if there's an arrestee that needs to see the court commissioner, we bring them back to the station, fingerprint them, photograph them, complete the statement of probable cause and all that, and then then we take them over to be seen by the court commissioner at the courthouse. The county, the jail has built a brand new facility over at Jennifer Road. It's quite an impressive building, and they'll be the intake for all of our arrestees that intend to see the court commissioner. If they intend to, we can either release them on the scene with a ticket, or we can identify them if they don't need to see the commissioner. We can release them from the police department. If they go to the commissioner, then they go to the intake facility. The intake facility is quite impressive. It's got there'll be a healthcare professional, there'll be a mental health care professional, and it'll be terrific for us because we can simply deliver the accused directly to the jail, and they'll take them, and it saves. If it delivers as advertised, and I have no reason to believe it won't, it should save us a tremendous amount of time in our booking process. And then, of course, we're in the process of working out. We just entered into an MOU with both the county. The chief entered into an MOU with the county police and the jail to arrange all this. And then they're going to send us back the data for the arrestees, and of course we'll match that up to our own information. So again, if you want, I mean, we can take you over there. It's an impressive building. It's quite nice. And then they don't have to go from the commissioner's office. What we're doing now is there's a private security company, I think it's Wackenhut, to deliver the accused from the commissioner's office to court. We can get rid of all that because the person goes right directly to the facility, and they can just walk them from one part of this facility to another if they're sent to jail or if they have to go to another facility. Department of Corrections handles all that. We don't even have to be involved. So it'll be a really good thing for us.
And I'll just add, one of the things we were concerned about, we were concerned as to whether we would keep our ORI number, our original jurisdiction of arrest. And Deputy Herman worked real hard with Anne Arundel County to make sure that occurred. So in other words, although we're taking on there to be booked and fingerprinted and entered into the system, we still retain that information statistically. So in the arrest that results in the city of Annapolis, we still get, for lack of a better word, credit for the arrest. Statistically, we can still gauge what we're doing. So it's just worked out very nicely.
But the county will still have their number as well.
Yes, ma'am, exactly. We get to keep ours concurrently.
We'll be the originating agency. They'll be the booking agency. So
Okay, great.
And then another quick shout out. We did a strategic plan. Bob Watkins, who's a member of the Chiefs Advisory Board, he sat down with my men and women right before the Christmas holiday. Really in October, I think, is when you guys started. And Major Herman presided over that process, and they prepared for me a strategic plan for this year. So we want to make that public and post it. We're at the stage now where we're assigning tasks, and it's addressing a whole lot of issues that I think that needs to be reformed. But the beauty of it was that I didn't attend the meetings. I purposely didn't. I wanted them to assess the agency to get buy-in, and they came up with some very good recommendations. The plan did. It's completed now. It was completed right after the Christmas holiday last month.
Okay.
And so now we're at the stage now where we're assigning tasks to deal with a whole lot of issues, administrative and operational issues.
Great, thank you. I have a couple of questions based on the meeting that we had over at Eastport last week before last.
Yes, ma'am.
And some of the suggestions that were made. I'm not going to try to hem you in and try to stick you in a corner as far as a yay or nay. But one of the things that was mentioned was a substation.
Yes, ma'am.
If you want to elaborate on any of the things that were recommended, you can. If you rather not, that's fine too.
No, ma'am, that's fine. And I'm real careful how I choose my words. I think those substations are a great idea if they're managed properly. And I would need my lieutenants in particular at that level should make sure that they're operating with integrity, that the officers, and when I say integrity, I mean that the officers are there, that they have some meaningful role, that we decide along with the community, not just us. We ask the community, what do they want to see, in terms of maybe visibility, addressing problems, hands-on without having to always go through the dispatch system, and just to create an overall presence to engage the community, help them with quality of life issues. But if they're done properly, I think they're an excellent tool, and we need a presence, an omnipresence in some of the more challenged neighborhoods. If I'm saying that correctly, neighborhoods are experiencing crime and other forms of social disorder. So I'm hoping that we can pull that off and engage it the correct way. I've seen them work firsthand. I've been a part of them in my previous position. But they have to be done correctly, because there's the flip side to that. If they're not managed correctly, it just becomes a hangout place. And that's what I don't want. But I think it's a wonderful idea if we can get the supervisors in there to make sure that the men and women assigned to there are very active and engaging the community.
I know there was one concern that was indicated at points in time that the substation really needed to be kind of in an area that other activities were going on versus a standalone or a unit that was not being used for residents, because when people go there, no one will really know why they're going there. They could be going there to pick up their child from daycare or picking up their child from after school homework or something like that. So something nebulous where it wasn't too in your face kind of thing.
Exactly. And even though you have a law enforcement presence, if we manage them correctly, and I can do some of the things that I said I wanted to do, like bring resources there, job training, people to come to talk to residents at these substations about job training, vocational training. Maybe Anne Arundel County Community College will talk to residents about getting a grant to go back to school, things of that nature. Talk about the opioid crisis, tell people what fentanyl is and how dangerous it is, have programs for children, they don't have to be anything elaborate, but just more of a community presence there. And while at the same time, and if you do it that way, then the criminal underworld won't think it's a place that we're going and people are feeding us, feeding police information, an informant building. That's what we don't want it to be. But if you bring all the kind of resources there other than just us, then, it'll be viewed as another center. And I really purely want it to be that we present a presence in the community for safety reasons, a marked police vehicle there, officer in uniform there, just interacting with the community in a positive way, but not just the police, other social agencies that may be of a benefit, recruiting people for some of Archie's programs in parks and recs and things of that nature, basketball tournaments, recruiting kids, and just a whole variety of things that the residents may want, and I think that we should go into those neighborhoods that are challenges and then ask the residents. That would be my recommendation, that we have a meeting and sit down and say, look, we want a substation here. How do you want that to look? Of course, when we're there, at the core of what we do is to provide public safety and to make sure that we can proactively prevent anything from occurring. But we also want to know that we're there to be a positive force in the community.
Okay. And the one last thing I want to ask about, I know a couple of years ago we had Sergeant Vaden come in before the Public Safety Committee and basically give us a rundown on a day in the life of a police officer, from getting up in the morning and what you had to do with your car and the end of the day, what goes on during the day. I don't know if you'd want to do it here or you want to make it part of your lecture series. That's your call. But
I would love to do it. It brings humanity to, and that's something that fits in nicely. I didn't even think of that, Madam Chair. That's a wonderful idea, because the biggest problem with policing, in my opinion, and Jack Webb said that from the old Dragnet show, is that you have human beings involved in it, and that means it's not going to be perfect. So we have the same challenges, and people hear that. It adds humanity to the profession. We have some of the same challenges that they have. For example, our children always do the right thing. We have teenagers who put us through the same thing. Sometimes we're wondering why they didn't get home on time, or they're hanging out with the wrong crowd, because they're human beings, and police families go through the same challenges as many other families. So I think it's a great idea to talk about, and then talk about the challenges. I mean, some of the stuff that goes on, it's trauma for us. Nobody wants to see somebody gunned down and murdered, when young people are victimized, when the elderly are assaulted, or a woman's raped, or guys walking down the street and he's beaten within inches of his life. A lot of officers internalize that trauma themselves, and that's a whole nother subject. But to your point, to talk about what it's like in the day of a police officer, and then it's the good things. I mean, most police officers will tell you, and they'll tell anybody who'll listen, when they really do something good and know that they've done something to really enhance somebody's life, save somebody's life, what a rush that is in a positive way. And so the community needs to hear that, and I think it's a great idea. I would love to tell my story.
Okay. And I mean, I'm just thinking, as far as the lecture series goes, bringing in the vehicle, showing people kind of what the vehicle does, what's in the vehicle. You might want to have a panel discussion, have a chaplain as well as a police psychologist.
Yes, ma'am.
To come and tell people what it looks like. I mean,
yes, ma'am.
I think that would, just have a
and that's the
short panel.
Yes, ma'am. You're right. And that's the intent of the whole lecture series. I started off the Constitution strategically because that's where we get our authority, the highest form of law, and our four sources of American law. But now that we have the Constitution, I can always revisit some of those other things about it. But now that we've gotten that, I think that lays the groundwork to talk about everything that
Certainly.
we do. Yes, ma'am. I think it'll be very enjoyable if we just keep the spirit there and let the residents know when we present that how much we care that their communities are safe and free of destruction, period. Not only crime, but destruction, period. Then I think it'll go a long way.
And the other side to it, what you all go through on a daily basis.
And the challenges that we face. Yes, ma'am.
You humanize it.
Exactly, and I think it goes a long way. I mean, many people in Annapolis know because they have personal relationships with officers, and officers share with individuals. But then they need to see it in mass. They need to all come out under a gathering, like you said, have a panel discussion, and I would be happy to lead something like that.
That'd be great.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And can I give one more shout out? I just want to thank, we talk about the public safety team. I know that Chief Ramali has given us a an AMBO, and we're really looking forward to being creative with that. And then when we needed funding to go and pick up our certificate from Orlando, Florida for Kalia, Dave and Chief Simmons, he's here now. They helped us out, so I wanted to publicly thank you and your staff and
Absolutely.
and for helping us
Spotlight them.
to get the
Absolutely.
funding for us to go to pick up that. That's huge. The Commission on Accreditation of Law Enforcement Agencies, Madam Chair, it's huge. So many departments wish they could do that, and quite frankly, wouldn't pass, the site visits. But I'm proud that we're going to pick up our certificate. And thanks to Dave and Chief Simmons and their staff, they provided the funding to allow us to do that. So I
So
want
you
to
all
thank
got
you.
something to brag about, like the Class 1 Fire Department.
That's right, exactly.
So thanks to them, we don't have to drive the Yembo to Orlando.
Yes, because I was going to have Paul to drive. I was going to exercise chief prerogative, and then I guess you were going to delegate to McGuinness, and so we were going to drive down there. But
Did you want to talk about any grants that you have, and any wish list within reason?
yes, in fact, speaking of grants, our grant writer, she was working part-time, Debbie, just resigned last week. It was the last day. We gave her a little luncheon, a pizza luncheon and send-off. So we're looking to get a grant funder. And one of the things she said in parting during her exit interview, she said, Chief, you have to strengthen the administrative side of your department, because a lot of the grants we could apply for, the funders need to know that we have the administrative support to manage those grants properly. And I thought that was a point well taken. Everything from collecting the right statistics to making sure the right people are in compliance with the requirements of the grant, to make sure that the inspections and then follow-ups and all those things occur. And we're real short in terms of our administrative support staff. So that was one of the things. If I had a wish list, I know you said within reason, we need to enhance that. I don't know of any grants that we have outstanding. Yeah, we have a bunch of them. Oh yeah, that's a good one too. Stan just talked about the public gun enforcement program. I guess if I had a wish list, I would like to sit down in 2020 with our partners and try to procure grants. I know we have some stuff operating with Anne Arundel County, Dr. Pamela Brown, Youth, Children, and Families, and the good work that we're doing there, Madam Chair. And I know that we're piggybacking on some grants. We got the $25,000 grant to plant the seed to start the PAL program, which we've already started our games. I think our first game was at Pitt Moria last week, and I'll be stopping by to talk to the young men and women. So that's a grant that we have. And I like to do something with gun safety. Remember, we talked about the buyback program, and I said publicly that I'm not philosophically anyway against the gun buyback program, only because people don't generally give up the guns they want. They give up things that they couldn't get as much money as the public generally pays for them, and many of them take it and reinvest in other guns. And if we want to get some of these guns off the street, I think that's just the wrong way. I'd rather target the people who are using these guns illegally and incentivize them to want to turn in people. They see somebody hanging out in any of these streets, and or believe, you don't have to have training that person may be carrying, wearing, or concealing a gun in real times. A lot of times, these people show off their guns, and if we see them in an area where we just experience violence, there's a good chance that they're on their way to commit more violence. And we would like to have a system whereby they call anonymously, like Metro Crime Stoppers, and if we get a gun as a result of the information, then be able to repay a reward if seizing that gun leads to the arrest of a person that's armed and we get a gun. And I'm of the mindset, even if they're not convicted, if we get the gun off the street and it's a stolen gun or gun used in a homicide or a shooting, we can verify that and we have that in our possession. I think that's worthy enough to warrant the financial rewards. I like to set up stuff like that. Those kind of things are on my wish list, is to get the right partners together and facilitate doing those things in 2020, and that would aid in my efforts and my promise to engage in good community policing for the city of Annapolis.
Okay. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
We try our best.
And I'll be informing you of some other things. And again, I'd like to give a shout out to our federal partners. They have started helping us with some of these problems too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again.
Okay, thank you,
Appreciate
ma'am.
it. You all be safe out there.
Yes, ma'am. You as well. Take care.
Mr. Mandel, you want to give us your wish list within reason? And then we'll call Mr. Gordon in.
All right. Thank you for allowing me to come back and answer this
Certainly.
question. Our wish list for the 2021 fiscal year budget season is simple, actually, and we're asking for 2 enhancements, and believe it or not, in the spirit of emergency management, they are cost-neutral enhancements. We're asking for 2 positions that are currently contractual: an emergency management planner and our outreach, training, and education coordinator be converted from contractual to civil service. Those are currently funded by the UASI grant, the Urban Area Security Initiative grant, and those would continue to be funded by the UASI grant even once they become civil service, much like the senior planner position was converted during the previous budget cycle. So the idea behind that is it would allow us to train our own people and not lose them to other jurisdictions and other agencies that can take them on and pay them a much higher salary. It would give us an opportunity to hold on to the people that we've trained. And
That's big on consistency when you're getting trained and you're doing the work and you have the same people for several years. That helps a lot.
exactly. And we've seen over the years, when we have our contractual employees, they do a great job. We train them in a challenging environment that we are in Annapolis, with all the events and all the incidents and so forth, the training. And then we develop them into great budding emergency managers, and then they'll see great opportunities elsewhere. To their credit, that's what they're worthy of. And we believe that converting these positions into civil service will allow us to hold on to some of this talent
Certainly.
a little bit longer. So that's what we ask for. And again, it's cost neutral because it would be continued to be funded by our current grants. And we hope that the council would support that request.
Okay. Thank you so much. Cost
you.
neutral sounds good.
Okay.
All right. Thank you all so very much. Okay, next item on the agenda, number 5, legislation before committee 0720, designated loading zones, for the purpose of authorizing designated loading zones in the city of Annapolis, creating certain definitions and generally related to designated loading zones. Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Mr. Gordon, I apologize for the lateness, and I'm going to ask Ms. Green next time, can we kind of switch up our agenda? If we have legislation, to have that on first. That way we can get the directors out, especially sooner than our public safety team. Thank you so much for being here.
Not a problem. Good evening. Rick Gordon, Department of Transportation. I'm here this evening to talk about 0720 designated loading zones. The legislation here essentially amends the existing legislation to expand it so specific loading zones can be used as mixed use. The idea, which was brought about by Alderman Gay, was to provide a way to minimize the disruption in traffic that we currently experience with the network companies, the transportation network companies picking up and dropping off passengers on our streets. He presented us with this challenge a couple of months ago, and one of the strategies that we developed was to identify specific loading zones that had the potential to be used for mixed use. We haven't developed the list yet, but we are working on it. I will tell you there are a few loading zones or businesses that have loading zones near them that have already contacted me and said, we don't want you to use our loading zone. Well, the idea is not to use loading zones during those times of the day when they're heavily used. The network companies tend to be more active towards the evenings for dinner, entertainment. So we will be looking at loading zones in those areas where there are heavy restaurants and entertainment areas. And most of the regular deliveries have been made earlier in the day. So that's the idea behind the legislation. The other thing is, and you probably all are aware of this, I don't know how many times the taxi providers have come in and indicated to us that they have nowhere to stop as well. And that was the idea behind mixed use, to make it so it's available not only to the commercial deliveries during the day, the Ubers and Lyfts of the world, but also for the taxi companies. We don't have a lot of parking spaces within the city of Annapolis as it is, so we wanted to try and make this available to all of the providers.
Okay, great. And I think you're doing an excellent job, and I know some of our taxi drivers have been concerned about space issues, and hopefully this will address and alleviate some of their concerns. Alderman Payon, you have any questions?
It seems fair and reasonable to me. I'm ready to support it.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
We hear a motion to support, to favorably recommend to our colleagues 0720. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Nay. The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Favorable recommendation to be forwarded to our colleagues on the city council.
Thank you very much.
I see nothing else on this agenda except number 6, which says adjournment.
I move that we adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Adjourned at 5:52 p.m. Thank you so much, Ms. Green.